Hello and welcome to the very first Monday morning briefing of Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked. I'm joined by James Kearney. Apologies for the later start. We usually aim to do this at 10 a.m. However, the Hearts press conference was at the back of 9 this morning, so it got pushed back a little bit. James, how's it going?
Not too bad. I ended up watching the game back as well, so I've now watched that game twice.
Wow,
which is 2 times too many, I would argue.
I think so. I looked at the highlights, and that was more than enough. But you of course had to watch it because you are doing an analysis piece that's going on the website later on today, and we'll get to reflecting a wee bit on the St Mirren defeat before looking ahead to the Killie game. But first, a couple of big news pieces. Cammy Devlin, of course, has signed a new deal, extended his contract to 2025. It is, I think, largely gone down pretty well for Hearts fans. What are your views on it?
I think it's a great bit of business. Yeah, I think Cammy Devlin's an excellent player, and I think that this season he's been one of the better performers in the team. I think even when the team hasn't been playing particularly well, I think Devlin often has. I think obviously he can get a lot better at a lot of things. I think there's still a lot of room for growth there. I mean, obviously his work off the ball is tremendous. Yeah, you'd like to see him be a bit more composed on the ball, perhaps, and picking passes moving forward in particular. But I think he's a great player. I think it's a really good bit of business, and I think it's important for Hearts to get players like that tied down and showing their commitment to the club, and especially after the back of Saturday's performance. There's a lot of unhappy supporters. This is the kind of thing that maybe just gives them a little bit of boost, a wee boost, a wee ray of sunshine to cling on to. And let's face it, there's not too many at the moment.
No, it's not. And Devlin he's someone who I think has still got real potential. I think he's got potential to get better and better. I think there's areas of the game that require improvement, whether it's just like the reading the game or his use of the ball. That was something that was kind of noted last season, is that he would do so well to win it back. He's just so good at winning the back, being tenacious, and then he could be erratic with the distribution. So that's something where maybe he just is using the ball better, his vision. That's stuff that should be able to be worked on. But then the key qualities that he has are a great foundation platform for him to still grow and develop that work rate, the attitude. You do need, probably Hearts could do with having a few more players like Cammy Devlin, and the way he works off the ball for the team to be a bit more aggressive, to be a bit more successful at the moment in Scottish football. But by and large, I think it's a sensible bit of business on all accounts, and the move for him to Hearts has been a good one. He's been able to get into the Australia team and obviously got to the World Cup as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Joe, I think you made a really good point there about the fact that you look at the things that he's good at. They're the sort of things you can't really coach. It's like you've either got it or you don't. Whereas you look at the things where it's like there's maybe the deficiencies in his game or things he could be doing a little bit better. Those are things you absolutely can coach. So I think that's a really good point. I think, like you say, I think there is room for growth there. I think he's shown that since he's come in, he's got a lot to offer to this team. And like you say, particularly, we've touched on this before about the fact that the team in general aren't very good at pressing in midfield or winning the ball back in midfield. And he's the one guy who you look at and go, actually, he's pulling his weight. He's doing his part, and it's maybe others around him who aren't matching that same level of output.
We'll move on to his fellow Aussie, Nathaniel Atkinson. He went off in the first half with an injury. As the news reported this morning that he's going to go for a scan. Saw him at the Orium just now. Saw him this morning. He was on crutches and had a protective boot on. But again, I think the scan is for. I think they're more precautionary until they get the scan and find out exactly what is wrong with him. But it's another injury, defence as well. So now we were talking about how we wanted to get a settle back for, allow Atkinson, allow Rolls, Kent, and Kingsley to kind of build up a relationship as a back four. That's going to be changed again. So now you're looking at Ofaya, who came on. And he didn't actually come on for Atkinson. It was Civic who came on to right back, but Ofaya came on later. So it's going to be either one of those two coming in against Kilmarnock. Probably the reason Ofaya didn't come off the bench for Atkinson at the weekend was because of he had obviously went back down to Brighton with the health scare, and there was a period where he didn't train. So it looks like it'll be between Civic and Ofaya for that right back spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that. I mean, I was really impressed with Ofaya during the win over Partick Thistle. You know, some people might go, okay, well, it's championship level opposition. You know, it's a game that Hearts scooshed it really. But I thought he looked really impressive there, and I really liked the way he was getting forward. Whereas like Civic, I think that I don't know if he's got quite as much going forward. I'm not entirely convinced, but I do think that his recovery pace and when he gets back and he's tracking a runner or something is brilliant. I mean, we saw that in the Aberdeen game. There's a few times when. I think it was mainly Duke would be like sort of driving down the left, and you'd see Civic just absolutely charging back and putting a big huge tackle, much to the delight of the fans, obviously right in front of the stand. So yeah, I would expect probably Civic to come in for Kilmarnock just because, like you say, he's not trained as much, and I think as well, particularly against Kilmarnock, where a lot of big guys, and the set pieces are going to be important, particularly defending set pieces. And I think that Civic's, he's an absolute unit. He's pretty big, and I think at that physicality and that strength, that height, I think that would be a tempting option for Naismith. But like you say, it's disappointing that there won't be a settled back four. We hope, obviously, Atkinson's back soon. I would imagine getting stretchered off is never a good sign, though. And like you say, it's one of those areas where actually there's two other players that can play there and do a good job, which is not too bad. But the other side of it is that you look at the defence as a whole, and there's now 6 fit defenders in the squad, 7 maybe. Like there's not many.
Yes, 5. I'm trying to think that. So you got Civic, Rolls, Ofaya, Kent, Kingsley.
Yeah.
Unless we're missing someone very obvious, yeah. So yeah, it's another area which is not great, and still Craig Halkett seems still quite far away. So yeah, it's a position they could really do with not picking up any more injuries. And let's move on to the St Mirren game. You've, like you said, you watched the game back. You're doing a piece on the website, kind of looking back at it. So now that we've had 48 hours to dissect it, let sit in, and not reacting straight after having watched the game. Is there anything that you saw from watching it back and what you've seen that can paint maybe a more positive picture? It wasn't as maybe as bad as being made out by maybe myself and by other fans.
I would love to be able to have some positives to bring to the table, but to be honest, watching it back, it was very disappointing again. I think there were a whole bunch of problems that basically just left Hearts with a mountain to climb. I think obviously we spoke about Devlin at the time, and we spoke about him in the post-match as well, where it looked to us like he was lining up in the right wing. When you sort of dig into the average positions and all that, you can see it's actually more of a centre mid. So it meant you had this really lopsided attack. But essentially it said to St Mirren, we're not going down the right, we're going down the left. And so I was like, oh, great, okay. That becomes very easy to defend against all of a sudden. And I remember in the post-match, Naismith was saying that he was playing with a midfield three gave us a little bit more out of possession, but in possession it gave Hearts very, very little. Obviously Devlin had that chance in the second half where on the overlap with excellent save by Zach Hemming, but that was the only time there was any effective attack down that side. And I think that lopsided approach, like I say, it made it very easy to defend against. And then, as Naismith said as well, he was quite adamant. The game was won and lost in both boxes. When we raised the Devlin point with them, and I'm inclined to agree, but only because Hearts didn't get in the box. And like that's got to be a concern. I think, what was it? Lawrence Shankland had 2 passes into the box. Liam Boyce had 3. Nobody else had any. In terms of open play passes into the box, just didn't happen.
And they're the ones. They're the ones you wanted to get on to the end of passes in the box.
Exactly. Yeah. They're the guys you should be passing to. So if they're passing, they're like, what the hell's going on? And you look at the amount of crosses as well. There are so many crosses hit, and none of them worked. So often the ball was just worked to Stephen Kingsley, presumably with the idea of then trying to get it in behind to Vargas. It just didn't work. It never. The St Mirren press were ready for it. The St Mirren team were ready for it. They'd let the defenders, Kent and Rouse, basically just have the ball, and then as soon as they passed it to either Kingsley, Beningame, Atkinson, Neuenhoff, whoever it was, it was always a short pass, and then as soon as that, with the players back to goal, almost always, and then as soon as that happened, St Mirren pounced, and Hearts just couldn't beat that press ever. So I think that, there's a lot of issues going on there, and again, it's a really disappointing result, because I think it's one of those games where you run it back, you play that game, and Hearts still lose that 99 times out of 100. I think that, obviously Shanklin has that late chance, but let's be honest, if that goes in, that's a robbery, because St Mirren were just better on the day, and Shanklin spoke about it after the game as well. The fact that, he knew that going into it, obviously you're going to struggle to find space in the box going in, playing against St Mirren, where they play so deep and so compact. But I think the worrying thing from a Hearts perspective is that there were no solutions to that. That absolutely no one could figure out what to do or how to get around that. And I think that's got to be a concern, particularly going into Kilmarnock tomorrow night, where again they play with a back three. It's going to be again Derek McInnes. We know exactly what you're going to get from him, and again it's going to be it's going to propose very similar challenges. And I don't think we saw enough in the St Mirren game to suggest that there are answers there.
Yeah, I think you raised a lot of good points. Because we talked about it at half time when we were just chatting, and they were just like everything was going down the left hand side, and that's really reflected in the pass network that StatsBomb, the stats platform that we use, a lot of football clubs use it, and that's reflected everything in the left. And when you're playing against a team like St Mirren, who, as Shanklin spoke about after the game, there's very little space. You need to make the game as wide as possible, and that means kind of switches of play. Didn't really switch the play that often to Atkinson, and then when it did, he didn't really have because everyone was over the left hand side. He didn't really have much to hit, and then it would kind of come back and be recycled back around. And then you talked about how like 99 times 100, St Mirren it might not have been would have won the game if you played it again. Maybe not as bad as that.
Yeah, sometimes that Shanklin shot goes in, to be fair, and it's a draw. Okay, but
again, it's another kind of like looking at the chance creation, and stats will come up with the percentage of if a game was played, the percentage of a team winning. So Hearts a 24% chance of winning that game, which is very, very low for a team of Hearts stature and that want to do what they want to do, and that's get into Europe and challenge on a consistent basis. You talked about how it's going to be a similar challenge against Kilmarnock. It really is, because you look at Kilmarnock and I watched them against Dundee at the weekend, and they were good. They should have won the game. They were good, and then until Dundee got a man sent off, and then that's where they kind of struggled with, because they had the onus was on them to play, and it left them a wee bit disjointed, and they seemed a bit unsure. But when it was 11 against 11, they were really good at counter-attacking, and when they won the ball, getting forward, you got Matty Kennedy and Dan Armstrong, who travel with the ball very, very quickly, and then you've got two physical mobile strikers in attacking, Marley Watkins and Kyle Vassell. And their ability to go from defence to attack to play directly is very, very good. And that's something that Hearts have really struggled to combat. Stephen Naismith talked about it in the build-up to this St Mirren game, that it's when Hearts lose the ball and that they're almost vulnerable when that happens.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think you can see that. I mean, look at like we say, look at the games that haven't gone well. The Dundee game, Motherwell. A lot of these goals have come from quick, direct attacks. And we saw again on Saturday, of course, was against St Mirren, where Olasanya was, like such a handful, and certainly Riles didn't look comfortable with him. Kent didn't look particularly comfortable about dealing with him either. And again, you worry a little bit about what's going to happen when you've got two of these bustling centre forwards throwing their weight around, and to be fair, I don't think either of the Kilmarnock strikers have the same sort of pace as Olasanya, so I would think that, I wouldn't think they'd be able to get in behind quite as often or as easily as St Mirren were doing, particularly in the first half on Saturday. But like you say, they are a kind of similar team. Again, like you look at St Mirren, most of their attacks came from dribbles. They weren't like passing it into the ball. It was move the ball into space and get a guy to keep running into the space, and that's something that Hearts have got to be really wary of, I think, going into Tuesday night, because, like you say, they've got real pace out wide with Armstrong and Kennedy, and and they're both also very good when it comes to just they've both got good deliveries into the box, and they've also got two big units to aim for. So yeah, I mean, I would imagine Naismith will stick with the 4-2-3-1 for this one, but it wouldn't be a massive surprise, I don't think, if he perhaps went to a three at the back, and with I guess it'd probably have to be all five of the defenders would play then. That's defense itself at that point, I suppose. I wouldn't be too surprised, but again, I think Naismith does seem pretty wedded to the 4-2-3-1, and I think we'll probably see that again, most likely.
Yeah, I think it's something that Naismith touched on in his press conference. He's building something for the future, and it doesn't seem like he just wants to kind of make short-term fixes, and that's why I'm not sure you'd go to the back three. And there's someone made the point to me on Twitter over the weekend about St Mirren. It's like, Hearts shouldn't be tweaking their game to play against St Mirren. We should be playing our own game, and I totally get that point. But team are in a position at the moment, especially away from home, where you're kind of thinking, just set yourself up to be difficult to break down, to give yourself a platform to be robust, and then take it from there.
Yeah,
and then you do look.
This may not be a popular thing to say, but it's that idea of well, like you say, yeah, you'd like to see Hearts impose themselves on the game and control it and play the game on their terms, but look at the away form, and as you touched on in your piece the other day, the away form's shocking. So at that point, I don't know if you can be too fussy or picky about how you're getting results. I think the most important thing is to start getting some results on the road, because this can't continue,
Yeah, because you look at the potential for the back three. It would be Civic, Kent, Rose, right wing back of Fire, left wing back Kingsley. You're looking Devlin, Devlin, and then either Beningame and Neuenhoff sitting with Vargas, Boyce, and Shankland as your front three. Like you said, that as you mentioned about Killie's physical height, the threat from set pieces, their ability to get crosses in the box. Having three big centre halves, or two, certainly two big centre halves would be beneficial. And then you've got two wing backs who can maybe help push back Armstrong, Kennedy, but if they get in behind, then at least you have two centre backs who can come wide and engage with them. And if one centre back goes wide to engage, you've still got two centre backs in the box to defend from crosses. So I think for a one game situation to get into a semi-final, I do think the back three is a potential way to go. But it's not great at the moment where this is the case that you're changing formation, you're wanting to change the style, while Naismith's wanting to instill a style and an identity, but you're having to change it for away games against Kilmarnock because of the threat they pose and the struggles you have collectively.
No, absolutely, and I think that it is tricky, because obviously Naismith wants to play a certain way and he wants to keep. That consistency does help, but I think just purely from an academic perspective, for the reasons you spelled out, I think the back three would give a bit more security, because especially if you're playing against a front two and two wide players as well, that's quite a lot of guys to keep an eye on, and maybe having an extra man there, not the worst thing in the world. And I do also think as well it'll be a big game for Vargas, because I think that he's probably, when you look at the squad, he's the team that are and the players that are available, he's probably the one that's got the most kind of pace to burn, I suppose. And I think that Kilmarnock's defence, particularly the three centre halves of like Findlay, Mayo, and
These,
thank you. Yeah, I think they're a very good like defensive trio, but none of them are particularly blessed with pace. Now, obviously, we're not going to see them like pushing all the way up, but there might be, an opportunity to stretch the game, which is obviously we didn't see that at all against St Mirren. And I think that's how you hurt a team like Kilmarnock. I think you're going to have to try and stretch the play at some point. I don't think it'd hurt maybe going long at times. If Vargas or whoever else is if they're trying to get in behind, maybe try going long, because I think we noticed that a lot in the St Mirren game, where a lot of the passes were short, like you said. There wasn't much switching of the play. There wasn't too much. We dinked balls in behind. It was mainly just pass it to the guy who's 10 yards away from you, and we saw a lot of that. And obviously we also saw that Hearts were going nowhere slowly with that.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you talked about the three centre halves that's usually been Kelly's build, but they've lost Corey and Daba to injury. He was kind of key to their the kind of hybrid three at the back, four at the back. Against Dundee, they played four centre backs across the back four. So
McInnes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's it'll be interesting to see if he sticks with that, because again, that gives you the potential that you don't really have to worry about the fullbacks as an attacking force. That being said, that means that there'll be a very little space to work with down the sides or behind Kilmarnock. So Hearts will need to be smart and shrewd in the play. But it's kind of finally it's a massive game for Hearts to get into the semi-final. Not won the League Cup since 1962. Not been in the final since 2013. To be continually getting back to Hampden and getting the semi-finals is positive, but it could act as a launch pad for the season. Defeat and the pressure just you can just see it on social media. You can see reaction at full time with fans. The pressure is just going to continue to build.
Oh, absolutely. I think a win tomorrow night would do Naismith the world a good. It would just give that little bit more breathing space, a little bit of relief. Because I think the thing as well about particularly the League Cup this year is, with Celtic being out, there's an opportunity there. Because the Celtic are the best team in the country. Or certainly they have been the last few years anyway. And with them getting put out obviously by Kilmarnock, that does leave more room for somebody else to maybe come in and do something. Especially with Rangers, they've been obviously very out of sorts at the start of the season as well. And you think there's maybe an opportunity for Hearts to end that hoodoo and maybe reach a final or actually make a real dent in this competition. So there is an opportunity there, but as you say, and it would be a very welcome achievement if they could do it. But I think that, because you look at the run of games, it's Killie away, County away, the Derby, then Rangers, then Celtic, or then Celtic, then Rangers.
Celtic and Rangers,
Celtic, then Rangers. Yeah, you think that's a tough run, and I think you look at it, it's like you probably, if you can get something from Kilmarnock at the start of it, like we said, it relieves some of the pressure, because if they were to lose and then they struggle against County, and then obviously those next three games are huge. So yeah, let's face it, just Naismith needs a win. He does. He just needs to get maybe even more than that. He needs a performance. He needs the players to play well. Obviously we saw that to an extent against Aberdeen. Now, now the more time goes on, now it kind of like, were Aberdeen just that bad? Is that what was really going on there? So
I would even argue that there's they need a performance, but maybe not like a scintillating performance. I think even just a grind out win where the team have kind of made it really difficult and got a good kind of foundation and really kind of scrapped to get, I was going to say 3 points, but progressing in the league. And even just having that kind of platform it needs to be a snowball effect that it goes from Killie into a win against Ross County, into a win in the Derby, and that suddenly alleviates a hell of a lot of pressure. You're in the last four of a cup competition. You started to win away from home, and you've beaten Hibs, who do seem to have already are starting to show signs that they are buying into Nick Montgomery and what he wants on the pitch, and that looks like a very sensible appointment. So it would be massive, well, to dent your rivals from across the city when it does seem like they are finding a bit of positivity as well.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely, this, like you say, is like momentum's probably the most important thing. And, I think, even just imagine to stitch 2, even 3 good performances back to back. Not necessarily, like you say, dominating the ball and having loads of shots. Yeah, like a scrappy win where they dig in and sort of get over the line would be very welcome at this point, because again, but it's those kind of qualities that we haven't really seen too much this season. Those are the things that I think are missing to an extent from this team. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the derby itself is going to be massive. That's going to be absolutely huge. And then county away as well. It's a very tricky one, particularly if you look at the away form that Hearts have suffered for God knows how long now. Basically since the turn of the year, almost pretty much.
Yeah, James, I'll go back further. I think you're looking at about a couple of decades at least in terms of away form. So
I suppose. But no, yeah, I think that I think basically tomorrow night's very big, because I think that if it was another defeat, but more concerning if it was another kind of insipid defeat, then at that stage, I think the Naismith will be under a lot of pressure. When we saw the reaction, to the defeat against St Mirren at the weekend there, quite a lot of fans calling for change at this point. Now that's maybe a little bit reactionary, perhaps. Maybe people have changed their minds, and obviously we know that social media and Twitter is not always the best barometer, for when it comes to sort of testing the mood music of the fans. But certainly, I mean, you look at over the course of the season, and the performances where Hearts have actually played well and acquitted themselves well are few and far between at this stage. And now that's got to change, and there's no better place for that to start than Kilmarnock.
Yes, that's it, and it's Kilmarnock where we'll be tomorrow night. Both of us are heading to the game, so we'll be back with another video prior to kick-off. But over the course of the next 24 hours, there'll be James' analysis piece from the weekend's defeat to St Mirren. There'll be all the quotes from today's press conference where I spoke to Stephen Naismith and Cammy Devlin. That'll be on tonight, and as well as some analysis from the press conference and the predicted lineups going up tomorrow morning ahead of the game at Rugby Park at 7:45 kick-off to get into the semi-final of the League Cup. So be sure to check heartstandard.co.uk for all the latest from Tynecastle and looking ahead to a massive match. So thank you, James, and I will see you tomorrow night for another hopefully another better game.
Touch wood.